If you were born prematurely, you can thank this man for your life. In the early 1900s, most physicians believed that premature babies were weaklings that were unfit to survive into adulthood and therefore not worth saving. But a sideshow entertainer named Martin Cooney decided to change that with his innovative incubators he called child hatcheries. He would display premature babies at amusement parks around the world through his exhibit called the Infantorium, where visitors could pay 25 cents to view a room full of glass boxes containing tiny babies. Cooney would use the earnings to work with nurses and doctors to do everything he could to keep the babies alive. His goal was to demonstrate to the public that premature babies could be saved with proper care. Through his efforts, Cooney saved over 7,000 lives, and by 1943, nearly every hospital in America had one of his incubators. His work completely changed the public's perception of premature babies and significantly contributed to the development of modern neonatal care. The Babushka Lady was the name given to an unidentified person who was present at JFK's assassination in 1963. He or she was seen filming before and after the president was shot in the head, but later disappeared into the crowd. That recording may have been crucial in revealing the truth about JFK's killing, but the person has never come forward with the footage. Austrian Mayor Hans Steininger died in 1567 after breaking his neck by tripping on his own ridiculously long beard while running from a house fire. In 2010, a Russian man died after being voluntarily buried alive by his friends. He was simply trying to overcome his irrational fear of dying when the ground suddenly caved in and crushed him. In 2008, a British woman died in one of the most embarrassing ways possible. Her husband admitted he would hook homemade clamps to the woman's nipples and administer electric shocks to turn her on. Apparently, it went a little too far this one time, and the woman was electrocuted to death. The husband was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to at least 20 years in prison. South Korean actor Jo Son is known for playing Random Task in the first Austin Powers movie. But in 2008, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison for torturing and essaying a female victim on Christmas Day. 3 years later, 27 years were added onto his sentence after he murdered his cellmate. In 2019, Florida man Grant Amato murdered his mother, father, and brother and tried to stage it as a murder-suicide committed by his brother. But police didn't buy his story when they found out his parents were threatening to kick him out of their house over his severe porn addiction. He had stolen over $200,000 from them and spent it all on a cam model from Bulgaria. In 1916, a Tennessee circus elephant named Mary murdered her handler by crushing his head on his second day of the job. The circus owner then decided to publicly execute the 6,000-pound elephant by hanging her from a crane. After she was killed in front of a crowd of 2,500 men, women, and children, an autopsy revealed that she had a severely infected tooth that was likely the cause of her murderous rage. To lose a third of his body weight for his role in The Machinist, where he weighed 120 pounds, Christian Bale pushed his body to extreme limits, consuming nothing but coffee, a can of tuna, and a single apple every day. His goal was to reach 100 pounds before producers had to stop him so that he wouldn't die, and the movie ended up being a total flop. He then had to regain 100 pounds in 6 months to star in Batman Begins, but then had to lose 30 pounds again before filming because he'd bulked too much. In 1996, 7-year-old Jessica Dubroff tried to fly an airplane across the United States but crashed during a thunderstorm. This resulted in a law banning children from flying. In 1987, Andy the Goose was born without feet, so his owner eventually fitted him with Nike sneakers to help him walk, turning him into a famous role model for disabled kids. But one day in 1991, Andy disappeared from home and was found in a local park the next day with his wings and head ripped off. Police were able to identify the killer but didn't reveal their identity to the public. In 2015, a man swimming near Huntington Beach, California was suddenly struck in the back by a great white. After making it ashore and going to the hospital, doctors assured him that he'd be okay. But upon seeing his x-rays, they realized he had a cancerous tumor that they were just barely able to remove in time. In 1993, a surfer named John Doyle was attacked by a great white shark off the coast of West Africa. He made it to shore unable to walk, only to be mauled by a pride of lions on his way to the hospital. More than 250 stitches later, he survived both attacks and made a full recovery. In 2001, an 8-year-old boy was attacked by a 7-foot bull shark while standing in knee-deep water near Pensacola, Florida. The shark had bitten off one of the boy's arms before his uncle pulled it away and wrestled it to shore. After a park ranger shot the shark in the head, the boy's uncle retrieved the severed arm, put it on ice, and drove it to the hospital where it was successfully reattached. In 2011, Chicago man Robert Lyons bludgeoned his mother with a champagne bottle before relentlessly stabbing her and pouring chemicals all over her body. He did this all because she refused to buy him skybox tickets for an upcoming Avril Lavigne concert. Robert was 39 years old at the time. This was the last photo taken of resistance leader Chiang Bin-Hua just moments before she was executed by bayonet. She led a Chinese guerrilla movement against the Japanese during the invasion of her country before she was captured in 1938. While in captivity, the 24-year-old was brutally tortured and gang-raped by several guards but died with a defiant smile on her face. In 2022, 70-year-old Maya Murma was collecting water in India when an elephant suddenly trampled her. She was quickly rushed to the hospital, but ended up dying from her catastrophic injuries. When family members gathered for her funeral, the same elephant appeared, threw Murmu's body into the air, and trampled it again. In 1996, a New Orleans man tied a sausage around his leg with a rubber band and wore skinny jeans to appear as though he was packing. While he was having the time of his life at a nightclub, the rubber band caused a blood clot which traveled to his brain and killed him. In 2014, Kentucky pastor Jamie Coots was handling a rattlesnake during a church service when he was suddenly bitten. But instead of going to the hospital, Coots simply went home believing that God would save him. An ambulance was later sent to Jamie's home by concerned churchgoers, but his wife declined medical treatment despite her husband falling unconscious, and the pastor later died. In 2019, a Florida man thought it would be fun to drop large pieces of concrete from an overpass onto a highway below. He found the biggest one he could lift with rebar sticking out of it and dragged it to the edge of the overpass. As he was pushing it over, some rebar caught his pants, pulling him over the edge and right into oncoming traffic. Prior to filming The Dark Knight, Heath Ledger locked himself in a hotel room and talked to only himself for 6 straight weeks. He said this helped him land more in the realm of a psychopath to prepare for his iconic role as the Joker. Many believe this extreme dedication was partially responsible for his accidental overdose on sleeping pills the next year. In 2020, a Florida man was arrested for allegedly sticking his hands in peanut butter and punching his neighbor who was allergic to nuts. If Barbie were a real person, she wouldn't be capable of lifting her own head and would have to walk on all fours due to her proportions. She would be severely anorexic and suffer from chronic diarrhea due to only having room for a few inches of intestines and half a liver. In 2013, a Brazilian woman confessed to lacing her cooter with poison so that her husband would die after going down on her. In 2006, 51-year-old Susan Walters was attacked by a hitman whom her husband had hired to kill her. But after finding out who sent him, she ended up killing him with her bare hands. Einstein encouraged President Roosevelt to develop an atomic bomb because he feared the Nazis would make one first. But he deeply regretted this after hearing about the devastation of Hiroshima. And knowing that his discoveries led to the invention of the atomic bomb made him very depressed. After suffering from an aortic aneurysm in 1955, Einstein refused surgery, stating that he wanted to end his life gracefully. He was taken to the hospital but refused any further medical intervention. Einstein's last words were unfortunately lost forever since he said them in German, which the nurse treating him did not speak. The man who performed Einstein's autopsy stole his brain and kept it in a jar for 20 years. He found that the part of Einstein's brain that processes math and language was 15% bigger than the average human's. Einstein's eyeballs were also taken by the same man and now remain locked away in a safety deposit box in New York City. Around 1902, Einstein had an illegitimate child named Lee Searle with his future wife Mileva. Very little is known about the girl other than that she was mentally disabled and died from infection at a very young age. In all likelihood, Albert never met the girl in person. Her existence was only discovered in 1987 through a collection of letters. Soon afterwards, the relationship was falling apart, so Einstein made Mileva sign a contract to help work things out. It had multiple conditions such as that my clothes and laundry are kept in good order, that I will receive my 3 meals regularly in my room, and that my bedroom and study are kept neat at all times. After those two eventually got divorced, Einstein married the daughter of his mother's sister, making them first cousins. Despite being very smart, Albert's second son Edward was diagnosed with schizophrenia and described by his father as an insoluble problem. He was sent to a mental asylum at the age of 20 and remained there for the next 35 years before dying of a stroke in 1965. Firstly, here's a video of Rambo the orangutan casually driving a golf cart around a private zoo in Dubai. Rambo has apparently been driving since she was very young and has since graduated from small toy cars to golf carts. She even looks through the rearview mirror and slows down at turns, demonstrating better driving abilities than most humans. This video shows the 200 IQ intelligence of a wild hare. Knowing that the hunting dog is following its scent, the hare runs forward along the path before doubling back and running off in the opposite direction once the dog passes. Next we have I don't know what this is. What is this? Next, please. Here's a video of a chimpanzee displaying impressive skills while taking a visual memory test. Chimps can actually perform this task far better than humans since they've developed excellent visual memory in order to spot dangers in the wild incredibly quickly. 2006, the Miami Hurricanes football team gathered in prayer for their teammate Brian Pata after he had been murdered by an unknown assailant. 15 years later, his teammate Rashawn Jones ended up being charged with his murder. During a 1998 soccer match in the Republic of Congo, a lightning bolt struck one of the goal pitches. It killed all 11 members of the home team because they were all wearing metal spikes. But the other team was left completely unscathed, for they had been wearing rubber cleats. During the 1910s, there was an American baseball team that completely consisted of death row prisoners. As long as they kept winning, their executions were delayed. Hall of Fame boxer Sugar Ray Robinson once had a nightmare where he killed his next opponent in the ring. Afraid that his dream was telling him something, he initially backed out of his next fight until a priest convinced him otherwise. He ended up scoring a decisive knockout in the 8th round that resulted in the death of his opponent, Jimmy Doyle. 2021, University of Missouri student Danny Santoli was rushing to become a new member of the Phi Gamma Delta fraternity. Knowing the process was hard on him, his family urged him to back out, but he wanted to prove himself to the fraternity bros. On October 19th of that year, the fraternity held their Pledge Father reveal night, which would end up going down as one of the worst hazing disasters in American history. Along with the other pledges, Danny was blindfolded and led down to a basement where he was force-fed beer through a tube and told to finish an entire 750 of Tito's vodka. Around midnight, Danny was sitting on the couch in extreme distress with a blood alcohol level of .468, nearly 6 times the legal limit. Soon enough, Danny became unresponsive and was rushed to the hospital in cardiac arrest. He was later declared brain dead as a result of alcohol poisoning and spent the next 8 months in the hospital. He's now blind, unable to walk, talk, or do virtually anything by himself. 11 members of the frat were criminally charged for the horrific incident. In 1955, 24-year-old actor James Dean died in a car crash while driving his Porsche 550 Spider, which he nicknamed Little Bastard. After the accident, the car was towed to a garage in Los Angeles, and while it was being repaired, it fell off its jack and crushed a mechanic's legs. The engine and transmission were later sold to 2 professional racers, both of whom later crashed their vehicles during the same race and were seriously injured. The car's tires were also sold, and the new owner was eventually killed in yet another car crash. Over time, the stories of deaths and injuries associated with the car led to rumors of a curse. Some believed that the car was haunted and that anyone who came into contact with it would suffer misfortune. But in 1960, the car disappeared while being transported from Miami to Los Angeles. The car has never been found, and its whereabouts remain a mystery to this day. This was one of the last photos captured of Steve Jobs, the genius behind Apple. It was taken just a few days before he passed away from pancreatic cancer on October 5, 2011. During World War I, 20-year-old French soldier Albert Roche was found sleeping on duty and was sentenced to death for abandoning his post. But thankfully, a messenger arrived just moments before his execution to tell the full story. Albert had crawled for nearly 10 hours under enemy fire to rescue his wounded captain before passing out from exhaustion. In 2013, a Chinese businessman hired a hitman to take out his competitor for $282,000. But the hitman hired another hitman to do the job, offering $141,000. That man then hired another hitman, who hired another hitman, who hired another hitman. The fifth hitman, who was offered $14,000 for the job, tried convincing the target to fake his own death. But instead, he reported the threat to authorities, and all 6 men, including the original businessman, were sent to prison. As a child, Robert Downey Jr. was always surrounded by drugs. His father introduced him to marijuana when he was only 6 years old and allowed him to start drinking once he turned 8. By the time he became a teenager, Robert had already been addicted to cocaine, heroin, and prescription pills. RDJ struggled with these demons for more than 30 years before finally deciding to turn his life around in 2003. This was the last photo taken of Semra Aysel before she was pushed off the cliff by her husband Hakan. The pregnant 31-year-old fell for more than 1,000 feet and died immediately along with her unborn child. In 2013, an 8-year-old girl found the lifeless bodies of her parents, brother, and grandmother in her basement. They were apparently poisoned by highly toxic gas emitting from rotten potatoes after going down one by one to check on the person who went down before them. The only reason the girl didn't die was because her grandma must have left the door open before dying, allowing the gas to dissipate. In 1977, Muhammad Ali endured quite the beating in his 15-round fight with Ernie Shavers, one of the hardest-hitting boxers in history. Ali suffered so much brain damage that his speaking rate was permanently slowed down by 16% after the fight. Geoffrey Hudson was a courtier for King Charles I of England who was only 18 inches tall. After being insulted by an average-sized man in 1644, Geoffrey challenged him to a duel with pistols. His opponent came to the duel only armed with a water gun as a joke. But Hudson didn't take too kindly to this and fatally shot him in the forehead with a real gun. During a drug-fueled rampage in 2001, the Prince of Nepal killed 9 members of his family, including the King and Queen, at Kathmandu's National Palace. The prince then turned the gun on himself in an attempt to take his own life, then fell into a coma. As heir to the throne, the crown prince escaped any charges and was instead declared King of Nepal, but he only reigned for 3 days in the hospital before being declared brain dead and unfit to serve. According to a 2014 investigation, the car that Paul Walker died in had tires that were 9 years old. This likely contributed to Paul's racer friend losing control while driving around a corner at 93 miles per hour. It's a tragic example of why you should always change your tires after 6 years no matter how much they've been used. Roughly 200 people die on cruise ships each year, especially on those that carry a lot of seniors. So most ships have a small morgue on board prepared to store up to 10 bodies. In 2002, 13-year-old hockey fan Brittany Cecil was sitting in the stands of a Blue Jackets game when a deflected puck struck her in the temple, fracturing her skull. She died just 2 days before her birthday and remains the only fan fatality in NHL history. In November of 2021, zipline instructor Joaquin Romero fell to his death after sacrificing himself to save a customer. He had to let go of the zipline because he knew it would be too heavy to hold both he and his client, so he decided that he would be the one to die. A woman from Utah gave birth to 3 kids on 3 consecutive leap days, February 29th of 2004, 2008, and 2012. The odds of this happening are about 1 in 3.2 billion. In 2004, a pine tree was planted in LA to honor former Beatles member George Harrison, but it died 10 years later after being overwhelmed by an infestation of beetles. Jeremy Rodale was a longevity expert who popularized the term organic food. While filming an interview for the Dick Cavett Show at the age of 72, he said, "I've never felt better in my life and have decided to live to 100. But just minutes after saying this, Rodale died of a heart attack while still being filmed. In 1983, 22-year-old Michael Anderson Godwin was sentenced to death by electric chair after brutally murdering a young woman in South Carolina. But the electrocution ruling was later overturned and Godwin was only handed a life sentence. A few years later, he was sitting on his prison toilet trying to connect his headphones to the TV when he bit down on the wire and was electrocuted to death. As a child star, Drew Barrymore was thrust into the dark side of Hollywood at a very young age. Her mother started bringing her to dance clubs when she was only 9 years old, letting her dance with older men and even use hard drugs. She understandably struggled to cope with this extremely early exposure to adult vices, since she was forced into a 6-month rehab program by the age of 13. and then spent the next 18 months in a mental hospital after attempting to take her own life. After a tiger escaped from a Georgia zoo and killed a man in 2015, a PSA was issued on what not to do if you ever encounter a tiger. Don't approach it, don't run away, and definitely don't urinate. In an attempt to escape a forceful arranged marriage with her cousin, 21-year-old Pakistani woman Asia Bibi poisoned a container of milk at a family party, hoping that only her fiancé would drink it. But instead, it was used by Bibi's mother-in-law to make a dessert drink for the entire family. It was then served to 27 members of Bibi's family, killing 17 of them. Gordon Ramsay's father was a violent alcoholic who regularly abused he and his mother. One of his favorite things to do was to call Gordon a gay little boy because cooking was for poofs. He became so aggressive at times that Gordon and his mom often feared for their lives while at home. In 2017, a 9 weeks pregnant Brazilian woman suffered a stroke and was declared legally dead. Although doctors said the babies had no hope for survival, the brain-dead woman was kept alive for 123 days before delivering a healthy pair of twins. After growing up with a chronically bloated stomach, Sanju Bhagat went to the ER in 2006 with severe abdominal pain and difficulty breathing. Doctors were astonished to discover that the twin he must have absorbed in utero was still living in his abdomen and surviving off his blood supply. The half-formed twin had limbs, long fingernails, hair, and even genitalia. Doctors eventually removed the parasite and Bhagat made a full recovery. At just under 2,000 years old, the oldest bottle of olive oil was discovered under the volcanic ash of Herculaneum. The discovery was extremely important to science since it shed some light on the molecular evolution of olive oil over time. The earliest known manufactured mirrors were found in Turkey and are approximately 8,000 years old. They were made of obsidian and had impressively good optical quality according to researchers. Built around 1300 BC, the Archidiko Bridge in Greece is the oldest arch bridge that's still in use today. It was used as a chariot bridge some 3,300 years ago. The world's oldest purse was found in a grave in Germany and was made sometime around 2500 BC. The fabric it was made of has disintegrated over the years, but it was studded with over 100 ancient dog teeth which remain intact. The Vimos coat is a 22-pound piece of iron chain armor made by hand from roughly 20,000 tiny rings. Known as the oldest completely preserved chainmail in the world, it was likely thrown into a Danish peat bog as a victory offering after battle some 1,800 years ago.